Thank you all for coming. I'd like to begin today's webinar by acknowledging the traditional owners of the lands on which we meet today. I'm here joining you from Neoh country. I'd also like to pay my respects to elders past and present. So this session is intended to cover frequently asked questions for our program offerings, and particularly for international students who are either considering studying with us or those who will be commencing studies very soon. So just to be sure, I'll just quickly share my screen. So those of you who aren't aware of our program offerings, I'll just put up a slide really quickly here for you if everyone can see. So as you'll see, under our undergraduate offerings, we have the Bachelor of Laws Honors, or known as the LB. That's an option to take as a single degree or a flexible double degree with about 35 other options. 35 other degree options in combination. Postgraduate, we have the Juris Doctor, we have a Graduate Certificate of Law, we have a Graduate Certificate of New Technologies Law, the Master of Laws program, and a Master of International Law and Diplomacy. And then, of course, we also have higher degree research degrees. We have a Master of Philosophy in Law and a Doctor of Philosophy in Law. All right, so I'd like to introduce our panel. Today we have Associate Professor Joshua Neoh, who is the Subdean International for the ANU College of Law. He's also the convener of the International Student Immersion Program, and he's an ANU alum. We have Sean C., who is a current Bachelor of Laws honors student, and is also the International Director for the ANU Law Student Society. And we have our colleague from our amazing student services team, Deputy Manager Elaine E., who will be on hand to answer some really pointed questions that the rest of us may not be able to answer for you. So I've prepared some initial questions for the panel to start us off, and then we've allocated time to answer questions from you, the audience, which we hope you'll submit through the Q&A chat function. And we'll aim to answer these questions as quickly and as succinctly as possible to allow time for everyone to get through any questions they may have. So let's begin. I'm going to put these two on the hot seat, Josh and Sean. So starting with Josh, as you were an ANU alum yourself, why did you choose to study law at ANU?
That was a very long time ago. I think for me was, I'm from Malaysia. I mean, the ability to get up in the morning, have a leisurely brunch, get on a plane, and be back home in time for dinner. That was unparalleled experience, right? Where you don't have to endure a 30-hour flight just to get home. So I think that's the other location. So I think our location relative to many parts of Asia, and especially in my case, Malaysia, was an important selling point that I'm able to do that. Secondly, the law degree here is recognized for practice in many jurisdictions in Asia. Though I did not end up practicing, at that time I thought I should keep my options open. So the ability to use an Australian law degree back home in Malaysia and get admitted to practice there was the second selling point. So I think that would be, at least based on my knowledge as a fresh high school graduate, that was the only thing that matters, right? But retrospectively now, there are of course more reasons one might have, but for a high school student of 17, 18 years old, being able to get home quickly was top of my
Yeah, that is entirely fair. No, that's honesty. That's really great. Thanks. And just to give a perspective of someone who might be, you know, more recent and currently studying. So Sean, can you tell us why, you know, why you decided to come to ANU to study law?
Well, I'm a third-year student right now, so I made the decision to come to ANU about 4 years ago. I was originally from Singapore, so I had to do my national service in Singapore before heading over to complete my tertiary education. So at that point of time, I had a few considerations. I had an offer from a Singapore university to study law, and I was intending to go to the UK as well. but I think it's a consideration specific to my situation. Being originally from Singapore, is that they were striking out a lot of UK universities at that time, in terms of like university degrees that they recognized to be allowed to practice in Singapore. So, but the Australian universities, if anything, I think more or less remain the same in terms of like the number of universities and like the length of the list and like the types of universities kind of remained the same. So I decided to continue my education in Australia instead. And why ANU? It's a nice, quiet college town-ish vibe. So you know, like the whole experience that I read about kind of factored into my decision to come to Canberra instead.
Excellent, thanks. So, Sean, since just following up from what you've just said about, you know, studying at ANU and why Canberra, so what have you found that you like about studying here so far? You know, is it, like you said, that's a nice, safe, good learning environment for students? You know, what else about the location and the type of like activities that you get up to here? What do you think?
Well, we've got quite a big and nice campus in the sense that a lot of our students do live on campus, and we do have like quite a strong hall culture over here. And you know, there are like many interest groups. People are a lot more friendly because I do have friends who go to school in like UNSW, USIT, and University of Melbourne. And they're saying how, you know, like it's kind of difficult to make friends when you're studying in a city. But over here, when you're concentrated on the campus and you live on the campus, it's much easier to like build connections with your peers. And those are like the kind of experience that makes it more unique for the ANU. And also we have like a beautiful campus, like on one side of campus, it's close to the city. On the other side, you know, we have like a nature reserve. So I do go for runs around campus all the time, and it's quite pretty, especially in the evening.
Yeah, excellent, nice. So both of you are involved heavily in student activities here on campus, and particularly supporting other international students. So Sean, you do want to tell us about the kind of you know, your role in LSS and what kind of activities you're involved in, and particularly those that support international students like yourself, and maybe some of the projects that you're most excited about working or being involved in.
Yeah, so as international students, we do have like pretty unique challenges. A lot of ANU students, even domestic students, come from like all over Australia. So very few students are actually from Canberra, but like as international students, we come from all over the world to Canberra. So with that, you have like cultural challenges and like living. If it's your first time living abroad alone, it can be quite a challenge sometimes. And if I'm being completely honest with myself, in my first semester, I was looking at options to like, you know, like perhaps go somewhere else, or like, yeah, you know, like it takes a while to get used to. So like you know, like we do recognize like the kind of challenges that we had. That's why we have this program called the International Students Mentoring Program, whereby we pair first year international students with a later year mentor who can be either a domestic student or an international student. And you know, it's kind of like a mentorship program that it's like a buddy system that the later year students will like show will provide advice to the freshie and like kind of lead them through adjusting into law school. And these are like the kind of initiatives that we have put up to help international students.
Wow. Okay, cool. Did you have that program when you started, or is it something that you started yourself?
So I was a recipient of that program. Like I was the first year freshie, and it's really tremendously helpful. And you know, I still am keeping in contact with my mentor. He has recently graduated. He's working at KPMG now, great guy. But you know, like we still keep in contact, and you know, it just shows that kind of like long-term friendship that is forged out of like these kind of arrangements.
Right. Okay, great. And then how about for the other types of activities that are either put on by LSS or other student organizations? You know, can you give some insight into the activities that maybe you've been involved in outside of the mentorship, maybe careers fair or other smaller group activities? activities that, that you found were particularly helpful?
Yep. So a lot of international students, they do come to Australia to study because they want to live in Australia afterwards. And a way to like make it possible for them to live in Australia afterwards is to have a career here. And so the LSS has a lot of like career related activities that international students can participate in as well as domestic students. Like these are the sort of things that would probably interest international students. And also the LSS has usually, like 2020 has been a strange year, but like usually the LSS has a lot of social events. There are balls and like social events where you can meet other law students and, you know, just make the whole law school experience more complete and wholesome in that sense.
Okay, excellent. Well, I'll put Josh on the spot now. So Josh has another program that he's obviously leading, the International Student Immersion Program. So benefiting students on behalf of the faculty and the academic staff and support staff here at the college. Josh, can you tell us a bit more about that program in detail and what specific things that you've been particularly excited about doing as part of that program?
Yeah, so earlier I mentioned that I chose to come to Australia because it's close to home. But so there's one part of it, but the other part of it is that it is not home, right? So I really wanted to get out of my home, right? I mean, 17, 18, I wanted to see the world. So part of coming to Australia is that to live in a different country, to experience a different culture. Being close enough to home is important, but being out of home is just as important, right? So by being in Australia, I want to learn experience a different culture, a different legal system, a different political system. So the program that I run now for international students help to introduce Australia to international students to help them make that transition better, to expose them to the local context. So we have excursions to Parliament House, to the High Court, to the Art Gallery, to the Museum of Australian Democracy, and various other places. So we go together as a group that will visit the site, and then we'll have a discussion about democracy, for example. So we visit the Parliament House, and after that visit, we'll have a discussion about Australian democracy. So the program that I run is meant to introduce international students to Australian legal, political, legal and political culture. So that's the program runs for a semester. We'll have an activity once a week, so every Friday, usually every Friday morning. It's a mixture of excursions, social activities, on-campus discussion, that sort of thing, and it's open to all new international students.
Excellent, thanks, Josh. So obviously, I mean, that sounds like an amazing program, but with COVID having hit, got lots of international students that are staying from overseas, who are, you know, kind of online engagement. All of our courses are online at the moment. So with the program that you're running, how is that sort of adapted, and what ways have you adapted in particular to support students in an online learning environment?
So everything has moved onto Zoom along with all classes, right? So now instead of a physical excursion, we meet on Zoom. So the program is still going without the physical excursions because it's not possible to visit these places physically. So we meet on Zoom to do this, to carry out the same discussion about Australian legal and political culture. When international students are able to return to Australia or come into Australia, because the travel restriction will eventually be lifted, the excursion program will continue. Recall what I said earlier, that the program is open to all new students, but when we get back onto campus for that round, it will be open to all international students who have not had the opportunity to go on the excursion because of the travel restriction. So while the restriction is in place, we'll not have the physical excursions, but we are committed to providing that experience once you're able to get onto campus. So that the post-pandemic semester, the first post-pandemic semester, will open the excursion to all international students who have not been able to join us previously.
Right. So with the studying online, obviously it'll be challenging anyways for new students coming from overseas and studying in Australia for the first time, just taking on a new degree, it'd be challenging for anyone. So I'll check with Sean for you. How do you find that you've adapted, and what sort of, obviously everything's online, you're interacting with a lot of people online or virtually. How have you found that transition, and what have been some, I guess, particular tactics or things that you've done that you wouldn't maybe have done previously in a non-virtual environment?
Yeah, so when the shift to online started in the first semester of this year, it was a bit disruptive, but like it was really unprecedented. So but I think in general the College of Law did quite well in like promptly shifting the materials delivered to be online. And to be honest, like law is a subject that's not like, like you don't need in-person attendance to be able to learn effectively. Well, like in-person attendance is always a good thing, but like like it's not like science whereby a practical component is absolutely compulsory. So there is a bit of work to do to for the students themselves to be able to get there to have that kind of like engagement. But all in all, I think Zoom classes and tutors and lecturers, they're still being very receptive to questions and engagement on like alternative platforms. All in all, like it made the transition that much smoother. Yeah, and like I guess you have to like studying online, like without classes, you have to implement your own schedule as to what you have to do on this day. You have to get this done, because it's very easy during self-isolation and quarantine for time to just zoom by and you'd be like, oh, okay, it's been 5 days and I haven't done much.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And so are you still meeting, do you get to meet with classmates, kind of on the side to discuss, what's happened in your course, or to go over assignments and things together? Like, are you missing out on that opportunity much, or?
Well, not really, because I still live on campus. I'm living on campus right now. So all of my friends are still here, and we're still able to like some of our friends who are interstate, we're still able to like contact them via virtually to like discuss with them and talk to them and like just catch up in general. But like if you're in Canberra, plenty of students are still here. The common spaces are still open, so it's very easy to just reconnect with everything.
Right. Well, thanks, Sean. And Josh, how about you? Obviously, it would be very difficult, teaching and lecturing to a screen rather than, having an amazing audience of students face to face in an open room. What sort of things have you had to do in your teaching and your programs to ensure that you still have good engagement and students are staying on track?
I had to learn how to use Zoom, and I didn't know that Zoom even existed until March this year. So there is the transition to online teaching. It's tough both on students as well as lecturers, right? I mean, the disruption is shared across both. So there is a sense between lecturers and students that we are now in this. We need to go through this phase together, and students are trying to learn how to study online, lecturers are learning how to teach online, and we are really just trying to weather this storm together. But the university has signaled its commitment to return to campus, right? We are an on-campus university. This is a temporary measure. We are not transitioning to online teaching. We are not turning ourselves into an online university. So this is very important commitment from the Vice Chancellor that we will eventually be back on campus, right? But for how long more, and that no one knows. Probably until a vaccine is discovered or invented. But eventually we will be back on campus. So in the meantime, we do the best we can to make this work.
Right. So just to sort of finish on this portion of the Q&A, what would either of you say to a potential student wanting to come and study here? What's some advice that you would give them? Maybe you could give it in the context of the climate right now, or it could be just general advice about coming to ANU and studying law. I'll start with you, Josh, maybe how you've picked up in this year, you know, the changes to the delivery mode, the things that students might need to be prepared for. If they're seriously considering it, what advice would you give?
Yeah, especially during this time, as Sean indicated, self-motivation is very important, right? Because you are doing everything online, and if you are overseas, you are not on campus, you are not within a student community. So to be able to maintain the degree of self-motivation is absolutely essential to get through this period, right? So my biggest piece of advice is to remain engaged and remain interested in law and in your studies.
Okay, so I guess for me, I'm just going to give out my advice on the basis that, you know, like assuming things remain to like more normal, like it goes back to normal next year. As for me, I would say a big part of student life is the social aspects of it. And as an international student, it really takes a bit to like put yourself out there and like, you know, like make friends and mingle with the crowd. And it's especially difficult in the first semester, you know, because it's a huge jump in environment. You're moving to a different city literally, and you're commencing in a different phase of life, and it's daunting. It's definitely daunting, but once you get out there and you make friends, you know, you realize we have a lot of friendly students at the ANU, and there'll always be a group of friends for everyone.
Excellent. Thanks, guys. Well, I'm really glad. That was a really nice, lovely way to end our sort of initial Q&A. So I'd like to open it up to anyone joining us today. If you've got any specific questions, if you could just submit them in the Q&A chat function at the bottom of your screen. I'll read them out and we can answer them as we go. Whether it's, you know, related to student life, if it's for particularly the, you know, the how courses are delivered. We've got Josh, we have Elaine join us as well from the student administration team. If you've got any particularly pointed questions. So yeah, feel free to just shoot them through. We are in, I can tell you all at the moment, it's lovely here in Canberra. It's raining, it's lush and beautiful. If some of you may have seen on the earlier in the year, we had lots of fires and smoke and a whole lot of things happening, but you wouldn't know it now. It's just so green and pretty. I think behind Josh.
Yeah, that's right. That by the way, is the law school lawn. So I'm in my office, and that's the lawn that that the law school has.
I'm glad you have it there, because I was going to try to put up something of a picture of ANU campus behind me, but it'll remove my face if I try to put it. So unfortunately, I couldn't put one on there. And I think, yeah, so Sean, you're actually from your accommodation on campus, is that right?
Yeah, I'm at my accommodation right now. Yeah, like it's not too great of a view. I've got like greenery out there, just a patch, you know, so it's but yeah, it's the community that counts, you know, it is a community.
Yeah. Okay. And are there many people in your accommodation at the moment?
Quite a few. A lot of international students left when COVID got like kind of bad in Australia in April, and government started recalling the students and like urging them to leave Australia. But afterwards, like and a lot of students went back to their states as well, like domestic students went back interstate to their families. But afterwards, the domestic students gradually came back. International students, unfortunately, those who left the country, they're still outside of the country because of the travel ban. But the campus is definitely pretty vibrant right now, and like the accommodation is pretty vibrant as well.
Yeah, excellent. And I think, yeah, most things are open from what I've seen on campus. They've stayed open. Yeah, it looks like I have, whenever I've been on campus, I do get, you know, this fair range of food options that I'm very excited to try and go around, in the bookshop as well. So, yeah, it's been been a really nice, surprisingly, from the start of what we've had earlier this year. I'm not seeing too many questions. Well, I'm not seeing any questions coming through the chat, but if you are having any issues with the Q&A function, you can put it in the chat function as well, or you can raise your hand and I'll try to allow you to ask your question first, and if I'm able. I'm not seeing too many here at the moment. What I might suggest though is for if anyone is interested in particular questions around, so international scholarships and certain pathways, there's information on our website that you can go and have a look at. We definitely have some scholarships available for our Master of Laws program for international students. We've got at least 2 dedicated ANU Law scholarships for international students wanting to take that pursue that degree. If you had any questions about that, I or Elaine could give you some more information on there. And if anyone has any questions between the differences, the differences between some of our programs, particularly, I think a big question we often get is the difference between a Juris Doctor and Master of Laws program, and also the Bachelor of Laws and the Juris Doctor. Actually, Sean, given that you're doing the Bachelor of Laws, how would you describe, obviously you study alongside a Juris Doctor students in a lot of your courses. Would you know much of a difference between the 2 programs?
I would say we do study alongside Juris Doctor students, and you can usually 9 out of 10 times you can tell a Juris Doctor student just by how they behave and how they look, and they're usually a lot more attentive in class. They're more serious. They're more on the ball about things, and they sit usually 9 out of 10 times right at the front of the lecture theater, and they're usually mature age students as well. That's the general trend. But in terms of they study more or less the same content. They're subjected to the same kind of content and lecture delivery. But I think for some courses there's special JD master classes for JD students that aims to pump them with a bit more information and study skills. And also they might have some difference in modes of assessments.
Okay.
Yeah.
Is that correct, Josh? Is it mostly coming down to the assessments and the kind of, amount of activities or curriculum that they would pursue in either degree?
Yeah, I think the main difference is that a JD is 3 years and LLB is 4 years, right? And that differentiation is because an LLB is for high school graduates, whereas the JD is if you already have an undergraduate degree. So the JD is shorter because in recognition of the fact that you already have an undergraduate degree, so you can complete a law degree in 3 years. Whereas if you're doing the LLB, you're straight out of high school, so you complete it in 4 years. So that, I think, would be the major difference between an LLB and a JD, the amount of time it takes to complete the degree. Both qualifies you for admission to practice in Australia. I mean, there are other hurdles that you have to jump through, but both are accepted law degrees that will allow you to qualify eventually to practice in Australia. So between LLB and JD, if you're thinking of which degree to do, it really depends on. The only criteria I think you would think about is whether you already have an undergraduate degree or not. Right? If you already have an undergraduate degree, then do the JD. If you don't, then do the LLB.
Excellent. Now, Josh, we do have a question here from an anonymous attendee. Do we have a migration law subject?
So migration law subject, if it is offered, it will be offered as an elective within the LLB and the JD, right? So for now, when I say LLB and JD, they share the same set of compulsory courses, right? So in order to get a law degree, which will then lead to admission to practice, you must do certain number of law courses. There's a there's a prescribed list prescribed by the government that all law students must do in order to get a law degree and then get admitted to practice. Migration law is not a compulsory course, right? Migration law is not on the list of compulsory courses. So migration law might be offered as an elective course depending on the year. So the compulsory courses are offered every year because they have to be offered. The list of elective courses, that varies from year to year, right? So we aim to offer a wide range of elective courses. That would mean not all elective courses are offered every year. Right, but in the duration of a 3-year degree, if you are a JD, or a 4-year degree, if you're an LLB student, at some point the elective will be offered, right? If you just wait right, it will come around to being offered, right? So migration law is an elective. It might not be offered every year. It's probably not offered every year, but at some point in your 4-year degree, it might be offered. So migration law is an elective course within the LLB and the JD program.
I'll just chime in to say that we have very limited courses in migration. And for next year, the only two that we have in offer is at the master's level, offered by the legal practice school, but JD, LLM, or the Bachelor of Law students can take it. So not for the LLB, unfortunately.
Excellent, thanks guys. I think as well, it might be worth noting what our specializations are for, I understand we have some new specializations on offer for the Bachelor of Laws program for 2021. I think maybe 4 specializations.
Elaine might be able to answer that question. I mean, it was, I'm not sure whether, the only thing I'm not sure is whether it will be ready in time for next year, given the pandemic disruption, but Elaine might be able to tell. Will we be able to roll that out next year?
Yes, so from next year onwards, students who commence next year will be able to aim towards a specialization. They are 4, and they are pretty much the same as the specialization we would have in the LLM space. So very much the international law, social justice and reform, as well as the private and commercial law, and the public law sort of area. So there's also a compulsory course that will be new, that is focusing on research as well. So this has come about from consultation of a review, external and internally, with employers, with past students, with alumni, with current students as well. And what came out from it was students wanted to, or employers wanted someone with a bit more focus on research. And although we haven't embedded research in each of our courses, which is why in our 4-year LLB, it's embedded honors program. You don't have to do a separate year for honors, but we do recognize that it would be good to actually have a specific course on research itself, which is what we've done. So that is next year will be our LOB, and it's a revamped program with these specific compulsory course on research, as well as the 4 electives or specializations as we call them. So unlike other programs where they have majors and minors, our LOB won't have that. We would call it a specialization, and it's basically 4 courses within the specializations that will give you a named specialization.
Yeah, but these are optional. I mean, you can choose a specialization, but you don't need to choose a specialization if you don't want to, right? You can just have the LLB and the JD without specialization. So it is an option that we offer students beginning next year, that some students want to specialize, but specializing is not a requirement for admission to practice, right? And it's entirely optional. Right.
Yeah, no, it's not a requirement. And this came about because students actually want something noted on their transcript. As like the other programs where they're specialized in a particular area in regards to their groupings of courses that they've chosen. So some students, especially if they've taken a lot of international law courses, they do want it noted on their transcript that, look to employer, I have done more of the international law courses and I have a specialization in it. So you're right, it's definitely not it's definitely not a requirement, but students who wish to specialize can definitely do so from next year. And one thing is, this is only for the LLB, not for the JD at this point.
Excellent. Thanks, Elaine and Josh. We do have another question that's come through. It says, since I'm an international student, I'd like to know more about the student experience when it comes to remote learning, especially for semester 1, 2021. Could it be safe to say that for students who are commencing then, that there will still be a student orientation to sort of kick things off for them, is like either through you, Josh and Elaine?
Yeah, but I think perhaps it'd be good to find out whether the student is an LLB or a JD or a LLM. Not to say that you have a different or you would have slightly different experience, just because in the LLB and JD, because the courses are semester based, you sort of start as a cohort. So we would still have our induction sessions and everything. For next year, similar as this year, it would be recorded and it would be through modules as well that we would run on the website. So what this means is students who accept, as soon as you accept, we will send out a welcome email from the ANU that gives you your ANU password, login, but subsequently, our college will also send through a welcome email that's specifically from the ANU College of Law, that we will give you a series of induction programs, what you need to concentrate on, how you are to enroll. We would have more for the LLB and the JD, as I mentioned, just because it is more of a structured program. For the LLM and for the Graduate Certificate of Law, Graduate Certificate of New Technologies Law, because technically you can start at any time, we would still provide you with the welcome pack from the ANU as well as from the college. But the induction program may be sent later, because unlike the LLB and JD, where you start in the semester, for any of the Masters of Laws, Grad Cert of Law, Grad Cert of New Technologies Law, you can start with any courses that you want if you come from a law background already. If you haven't, you need to do law and legal institutions, which will start in February next year. But if not, if you have a law background, you can start with any laws courses. So as such, you don't really start as a cohort, but we would still have the induction that you can look at and the information that you can look at, but not specific induction program as such for you, if that makes sense.
Okay, thanks, Elaine. I guess feel free for that attendee, if you would like to specify whether or not you're LLB, JD, or LLM, if you're considering one of those options. If you like, you don't have to. I think Elaine did a good job of outlining how it might be different. And then I think, as we've mentioned, she said, they said, I will be taking LLB.
Oh,
so,
fantastic. So you know what, you'll be invited to, as with any other international student, invited to Josh's program, the International Student Immersion Program. You will have 2 inductions, obviously, one just as an LLB student, but also one as an international student. So we'll have the modules up for you as well.
And so the modules are sort of, do they have a time frame of when they need to complete them by? And is it like 5 modules of information, or?
So basically what we've done is, because we do know, rather than sitting face to face or sitting down for a Zoom for a period of time, there's a lot to take in, whether you're domestic or international. So we've basically taken out snippets of an induction session that would normally run as one complete session and put it into modules. So let's say we've taken out Josh's session just as an international welcome. We would then taken out the compliance section for international student visa compliance. We took out just, what would be an LLB enrollment look like for semester 1. So it's not so much modules that you have to complete, but it's more bite-sized modules that students can take at any time and in any order as well that they would like to digest it in.
And given, it sounds like there'd probably be less things they have to worry about. Is that right, Elaine? Like, as far as, if you're coming from overseas, you have to think about your visa and getting the letters sorted in time, on the documentation, the accommodation. Are we finding that maybe actually in this instance, there's a little bit less that you have to do to start off with, and just focus on signing up for your classes?
I do think studying remotely for LOB, especially for undergrad, can be quite challenging. And you're right, it's not as much to think of compared to previously where, where am I going to stay? You need to come and transition and everything. At least you still have your support group back home. But I suppose one thing I would say, starting as an international student in a new program and overseas, would be the social support. It's if you're here, you get to make friends to the residences, you get to make friends when you're in the induction program or in class. Well, if you're doing it online, everyone's just a blank screen on Zoom like I am currently. It can be a bit more difficult, and that's why I would encourage students to take advantage of the programs that we have, that Sean has mentioned through the LSS, that Josh has mentioned, as well as the the Pell program, the peer assisted learning program that they can take charge of. That's at least something that not only just helps you academically, but also support you as part of a cohort, I would say. So that's one thing I feel that for studying remotely, this is one of the challenges that students will face, is connection with one another. And we do have these sort of activities for you to take part of, that you can be a bit more connected, not just to the ANU, but also to your peers.
Excellent, thanks, Lane. Sean or Josh, did you want to jump in on anything that you may have noticed for the cohort that would have started this past semester, the first cohort really to start in an online environment?
Yep. So usually for the second semester, we don't have a lot of new LLB students coming in. It's more there's some JD students here and there. There's a lot of LM students who come in over winter. But we don't have a lot of LLB students. LLB students generally do start in the first semester of next year, so it's not quite clear how that would look like yet. But still, the LSS, like for this year, like what I've been doing since Australia closed its borders to selected countries, is that we still do try to engage with students commencing their program of study from abroad. Because it's quite a daunting thing to do, taking on studies in a field that's completely foreign to you, and not having the kind of like in-person support in terms of like social aspects and stuff. So the next international students director of the LSS, I've spoken to him, and he seems keen. He's really excited and enthusiastic about his new role, and he does have like a great many ideas, and he wished to continue to run the international students mentoring program that has served international students quite well. So you just have to apply for that when it comes to Sem 1, and they'll try to assign you with a new mentor.
Yeah, thanks.
Yeah, no worries.
I'm not seeing any other questions coming through there. But I do welcome, we'll be on here for a little while longer. So if you do have any burning questions, don't be shy. You can ask anything, you can, of Josh, Sean, Elaine, me. I didn't study law, but I was an international student as well. Not so, I don't know how far back compared to Josh, maybe at the same time. We're very happy to answer your questions. I will say, in the interim, I can share a bit more information that we have going this for later this week, as well as things that we have available on our website. So particularly when we talk about the international overseas and virtual learning experience now, there's a lot of content now that we have on our website that you can engage with. That you can, recordings that you can watch now, and also events that you can join as well. So I'll just pull up my side here. So as you'll see, as part of this webinar week, we do have a special event that's on Showcase. It's on Wednesday from 5 to 6:30. It's the Technology and Legal Innovation Showcase. So that'll be hosted by our LLM director, Dr. Pip Ryan. It will involve, I think, 10 presentations from 10 different student presentations from either individuals or groups, showcasing their research or their projects and what they've, what they've been learning this semester. It's all going to be online. Anyone's welcome. So if you want to see what some, projects and research students have been doing in this time online virtually, it'll really be a great opportunity to see that. We also have more resources on the website. For example, we've got webinar videos hosted from our recent virtual orientation week, some online master classes. Dr. Pip Ryan, the LLM director, also runs a podcast series in which she interviews other lecturers in the college. Josh, have you done one yet? Have you been interviewed for the program? No? To be confirmed, to be soon, hopefully. So she sits down and does a little interview with some of the people who might be lecturing into the Master of Laws program in particular. She also runs what's called a mastermind workshop series in which students will come online and talk about their research or research ideas. It's kind of more supportive networking group to do that. I think mostly for our LLB and JD students, there is a judge in residence program that one of our lecturers, Dr. Heather Roberts, runs. So a judge is actually invited to either meet in person or virtually to talk about their background or to take questions and Q&A with students. And we also have something similar like an alumni panel series where it's either an individual alumni will talk to students, or we'll do a bit of a panel event about a few different alumni, either domestically or internationally, who can talk about what careers they've entered into, the type of activities that they did as students. So that's usually held a couple times a year, but all the recordings are kept online. And then of course, student profiles and testimonials on people like Sean, or who you can hear a little bit more about their backgrounds and where they came from and why they chose to study there. So yeah, there's lots of information that is available to you if you like. So I'll stop sharing that. Sean, have you been to any of the judge in residence events before? Have you met with any of the judges?
Not specifically the judge in residence events, but I've sat in a few Justice Gummo lectures, and he's a guest lecturer here at the ANU. He pops by from time to time. Brilliant jurist mind, and it kind of intimidating, but part of the whole package.
You're right. Okay.
Yeah. All comes with the package of being a former high court judge. Yeah.
Okay. Right. Yeah, I can imagine there'd be some pretty intimidating and impressive people who'd be coming into the law school quite regularly. I've met a few, but not as a student, obviously. So the access there, I haven't really seen what you guys get to experience. Well, I don't think we're getting any further questions at the moment. So I'll just put in the chat some email addresses that you can contact us at. So you can either contact me, my name's Ashley. I can either answer your questions, or I can direct you to other people to answer some of your questions, or set up a time to chat further if you like. We also have our excellent student admin team that Elaine's representing today. They would have all of your answers as far as, different programs, what for example, the modules and that sort of information would be like, as well as stuff, if you're worried about can you get credit for a particular program and how do you go about applying for credit, their team would be the best to email for that. So I've just provided those there. And yeah, if there's no further questions, we'll leave it there. Thanks for joining us. Thanks, Sean. Thanks, Josh. Thanks, Elaine, for coming on board. And yeah, we hope to be in touch with you all again soon. Thanks very much.